Let me introduce you to Chapter 6 about interest rates. Well, interest rates are very important to each one of you and to me. Right now, if I wanted to borrow money for like a 30-year mortgage, I would probably face an interest rate charge of about 4%, which is great because when you're borrowing money, you want the interest rate to be low. However, my emergency fund, which is my savings account, is only earning me an interest rate of 0.6%. And that is very sad. And my interest, expense is so low that my money is not going to grow very quickly. So interest rates affect you in this way. What you're going to pay when you borrow money for a loan for a house or for a car, or if you have extra money, what you're going to make if you try to invest in like a savings account or even the stock market. So the main objectives for Chapter 6 are for you to be able to list the various factors that influence the cost of money. The second objective is to discuss how market interest rates are affected by borrowers' need for capital, expected inflation, different securities risks, and securities liquidity. And the third objective is for you to be able to explain what the yield curve is, what determines its shape, and how you can use the yield curve to help forecast future interest rates. So, this slide talks about what are the four most fundamental factors that affect the cost of money, or basically the general level of interest rates in the economy. So these four factors you can see in the bullet points. So production opportunities are the investment opportunities in productive or cash generating assets. Time preferences for consumption are the preferences of consumers for current consumption as opposed to saving for future consumption. Risk in a financial market context is the chance that an investment will provide a low or negative return. And then inflation is the amount by which prices increase over time. An inflation example is when I was in college, I think that gasoline was about $1.90 or something. And recently we've seen gas prices of like $4 per gallon. And you always hear your parents say, well, at least I hear my parents say, they remember when they could buy a Snickers bar for 5 cents. And now, I don't know, the Snickers bars, I think they're probably $1 or maybe they're 50 cents at Walmart. I'm not sure. But I know they're a lot more expensive than 5 cents. The interest rate paid to savers, which I'm trying to do is to be a saver, depends on, first, the rate of return producers expect to earn on invested capital. Second, on savers' time preferences for current versus future consumption. Third, on the riskiness of the loan. And fourth, on the expected future rate of inflation. Producers' expected returns on their business investments set an upper limit to how much they can pay for savings, while consumers' time preferences for consumption establish how much consumption they are willing to postpone, hence how much they will save at different interest rates. Higher risk and higher inflation also lead to higher interest rates. Now let's look at two questions. What is the real risk-free rate of interest, R star, and the nominal risk-free rate, R sub RF? And then how are these two rates measured? So the real risk-free rate, or otherwise known as R star, is the rate that would exist on a riskless security if no inflation were expected. It could be thought of as the rate of interest on short-term U.S. Treasury securities in an inflation-free world, which does not exist. The nominal risk-free rate, RRF, is equal to the real risk-free rate plus an inflation premium, which is equal to the average rate of inflation expected over the life of the security. It is difficult to measure the real risk-free rate precisely, but most experts think that R star is in the range of 1 to 4 percentage points. The best estimate of R star is the rate of return on indexed treasury bonds. The T-bond rate is used as a proxy for the long-term risk-free rate. However, we know that all long-term bonds contain interest rate risk, so the T-bond rate is not really riskless. It is, however, free of default risk. So default risk is the risk that the government will go bankrupt, which sometimes we wonder about that.